Welcome back to the news today. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed he would safeguard Israel's interests during his upcoming meeting with President Barack Obama as he set off for a 5-day trip to the United States. Sounds of war are getting closer as Ukraine and Russia mobilize troops to Crimea, creating the biggest confrontation between Moscow and the West since the Cold War. And Iranian President Hassan Rouhani slams the assassination of its nuclear scientist as reports emerge that the U.S. is pushing Israel to stop the alleged targeted killings. Welcome back. This is the Daily Debate, and in the book, The Guns of August 1914, the world deteriorated into a war that nobody really wanted. 100 years later, in March 2014, Russia and Ukraine are engaged in a standoff that could end in a large-scale war that nobody intended for. What started as local demonstrations against the Ukrainian president is becoming a threat to the world peace. How can we avoid a full-scale war? What is the way out? Or is it there a way out? With me is Dr. Olena Bagno. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome back, research fellow at the INSS, and Barbara Opall-Rome, Israel Bureau Chief of Defense News. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Olena, can we avoid a war? Can the world avoid a war?
It depends on what you consider a war. I think that Ukrainian and Russian military capabilities are incomparable, so there's going to be a local conflict. And as we heard today, the United Kingdom Foreign Minister also said that the only opportunity for the international community to react would be the diplomatic one. So they are going to pressure Russia diplomatically, but not military. So there's probably be no war but the occupation of Ukraine.
Barbara, we are seeing the way that maybe Vladimir Putin is trying to put himself up to President Barack Obama. Is this a new way? Is it a new step for him to actually try to, pick up on him again, let's say?
A huge escalation. Putin realizes that almost all of the cards are in his hands, considering the disarray in Washington and in the West. And he is obviously making a power grab. I don't think that Putin himself wants to provoke any kind of engagement, and perhaps some type of an occupation of Ukraine is the end state that will, unfortunately, if not war-like ramifications, will move the line of conflict between NATO and Russia ever closer. We, during the Cold War, talked about the Fulda Gap being the standoff line in Germany. Well, it's not unreasonable to think that the new standoff line could be a division along the Odessa line in Ukraine.
But can the United States actually stay aside and actually stay silent to what is happening, to what Vladimir Putin is actually?
United States is not staying silent. Here, President Obama talked to Putin for 90 minutes, I think, 2 days ago, trying to express his vision of the situation. They are not going to. He's going to talk today to world leaders, again, trying to consolidate some sort of a solution. I'm sure that what we are going to see is, and I agree to what you just said, that Putin is not going even to occupy Ukraine. I think he has a rank of goals that he will try to achieve from the minimum to the maximum. And his minimum would be even putting domestic pressure on the new Ukrainian leadership, showing them who is the big guy on the block. And then the maximum goal would definitely be the occupation, but not the occupation, but rather trying to twist the public opinion in Crimea. There's going to be a referendum at the end of March, and if all the population of Crimea miraculously or unanimously, as the upper house of the Duma of Russian parliament would decide that they are going to be with Russia, then Russians would say, okay, we are the winners, and we're going to somehow reconsider also the Kharkov airports that are very costly for Russia. So there's going to be an economic component.
We are hearing that the United States is not staying silent, but I think that maybe Barack Obama is just saying, how come I let it deteriorate to this point? How come I didn't see it coming?
this has been 3 months coming. The writing has been on the wall. And this 90-minute conversation obviously resulted in nada. And the meeting between Secretary Hagel in Brussels today did not seem to have much of an effect. Now, the NATO forces have had a presence in the Black Sea since the Sochi Olympics because of the terror threat. That's one lever of some type of a pressure. Another possible level of pressure, and this is what the former Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, retired Admiral James Stavridis, he told my sister publication, Military Times, that he thinks that the response force, NATO's 25,000 strong response force, should go on higher alert. That's another lever. And then, of course, there is a 2012 law on the books in the United States that would be able to kick in sanctions against Putin and his band of oligarchs, very serious economic sanctions. But there's one thing that's very interesting. This month marks the 20th anniversary of the first shipment of nuclear weapons from Ukraine, out of Ukraine, to be dismantled. This was a significant treaty. It was signed between Yeltsin, Clinton, and the former president of Ukraine at the time. And as an addendum to this treaty, there was something called the Budapest Memorandum, which, while not binding, it's not like Article 5 of NATO that binds, response, yes, a defensive response by NATO. But if this memoranda is considered legal, it could oblige the United States, and by the way, I should have mentioned that Tony Blair also was part of this pact. So we could possibly see them being dragged once again into some type of loophole, trying to shirk out of a military solution to a problem.
So if we're talking about a military solution to a problem, and Ukraine is actually facing some kind of we can call it a war for the last months in this way or another, can they actually face a war in front of Russia?
My answer, if you were there, very short answer would be no, definitely, because Ukrainians for the last 23 years since their independence, they did not invest in their military, so military capabilities of Ukraine are very limited. But I want to go back to what you just said on Budapest memorandum. Indeed, Russia was ironically the third guarantor, yes, of that memorandum. So again, the military option, I think, is even not the option that Putin is considering seriously, but he would definitely try to increase tension until the end of this month, at least, to see what the referendum is going to
So what,
show
it's another show
Crimea.
of muscles that we're talking about from Vladimir Putin?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because if there is not provocation, because Ukrainian government is very, very cautious in provoking Russians now. There is a direct instruction that was given by Turchinov, the interim president, to all the military troops of Ukraine not to provoke Russians. So they are not shooting. But if the first shoot is fired, then the situation can deteriorate, and we cannot even forecast what might have happened.
So where can the United States or the West world can actually emerge? Because we're seeing that the United States is not able to solve any of the problems that it wanted to solve in the last, let's say, Syria and Iran. And it seems that Russia is always like jumping on the...
Putin is very calculated, and he's very well aware of the disarray and almost the impotence. He saw what happened in the British Parliament, voting down the possible use of force in Syria. He saw the wavering in Washington over a possible use of force that Obama himself recommended in terms of ridding the Syrian chemical threat. Ukraine is far more of a vital strategic asset to Russia than Syria will ever be, and we've seen the extent that Putin has been willing to go to preserve for the survival of Bashar al-Assad. So that is a very disturbing sign. Another trend I would like to offer is today's defection of their naval commander. This is more of a shock and awe effect of war. This is a deterrent effect and a very serious blow, I think, to any intention
leadership
on the part of Ukraine to even try to have some kind of a confrontation with Russia over this?
I want to take it to the people. I want to take it to the streets, because I believe that when the Ukrainians went outside, when they went outside and demonstrated against their own government, they didn't expect that this what will happen. Because even on Thursday, we spoke with a former official in Kiev, yes, and he said, no way that Russia will get in with its troops inside Kiev or inside Ukraine. It's something that we cannot even think about, and yet it might happen.
We were not thinking about it last week, but you see what 1 week can change. I would say that going back to the streets, to the public opinion in Ukraine, there is also a media war between the Russian news and Russian news coming from Russia and news that are produced in Ukraine or by independent sources. And the Crimean Peninsula is much more exposed to news coming from Russia. If you listen to news in Russian or in Ukrainian, you would see an absolutely different reality, which is like the Russian coverage is focused on Nazi, fascist, ultra-radical people coming from the West trying to conquer the Russian peninsula, the Crimean Peninsula, and that they would threaten the security of people there. And
same argument, by the way, that Putin has been using to justify his support of Bashar al-Assad, that they're rebels, they're terrorists, they're
Nazi groups.
Nazi groups, radicals. It's a very different story, but I would say that there is also a very, very deep sense of inertia within the Ukrainian public. Ukrainian public is not the public, especially in the eastern regions, that still understands or realizes the gravity of their situation. I'm talking to people there on a daily basis in the eastern regions. They still feel that there is a power struggle between the eastern economic elites and their leadership in Kiev. So they do not realize what might happen if Russians are going to escalate.
And apropos to the mood on the street, let's also not forget the mood on the street in America and in NATO countries.
Absolutely.
They're winding up a very heavy, more than a decade conflict in Afghanistan. They're war-weary, they're overexpended, and this also will play to Putin's advantage.
Yeah,
Can they still avoid it?
We're going to have to see how it plays out. And I think the person in the driver's seat, an unchallenged place in the driver's seat, is Vladimir Putin.
And I still, my take on that would be no escalation, because even if there will be some sort of a military campaign, it's going to be short-lived. And as in Georgia, even with economic sanctions, we saw, and Putin already knows, that these sanctions do not last long. So he can allow himself to behave in the way.
The question that I just see it, and according to the last events, and according to maybe the last year that we're looking at Russia, where is it going? Because it seems that no one can actually stop him.
It would be interesting to see how far Putin wants to go to try to reverse what was accomplished under Boris Yeltsin. The West at that time, led by the United States, made a precipitous, right now we're all very intelligent in 2020 hindsight, but as soon as the collapse of the Soviet Union occurred, the United States and NATO rushed in with all kinds of tempting offers to court the former Warsaw Pact, of course, and even members of the Commonwealth of Independent States, and they rushed forward and tried to bring them into NATO's orbit. And this is something that Putin has publicly opposed politically, verbally, for years. So perhaps now is his chance to make good on that and correct what he believes is a historic wrong.
I agree to that. I do not know where Russia is going now. I think that it can allow itself to go in this direction until the oil prices are high. When something happens economically, we still know that Russia is a colossus economically. It's still a colossus on a very weak legs, and it might change the whole picture. But right now, it's going where it's going.
And of course, the gas, we just heard about it today in the news. It will be interesting to see how the whole situation will develop in the next few days, and it seems that it's going to develop not to a good way. And of course, you will be accompanying me to another discussion about the subject. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
For coming, ladies, to the studio. And we're going out for a small break, 2 minutes break, and then we will be back for one-on-one. Don't go anywhere.